Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world that looked absolutely perfect from the street. All trimmed lawns, pastel kitchens, polished chrome, fresh coffee, television dinners, children in clean socks, and a mother standing in the doorway with a smile so steady it should probably have been insured. But underneath all that neat domestic glow was a much stranger, quieter, and more chemically assisted world than the advertisements wanted to admit. We're talking about 1950s American motherhood. The real one, not the version where everyone owns a spotless refrigerator, speaks in cheerful radio voices and solves emotional collapse with a casserole. And before we go any further, let's be fair. Not every 1950s mother was addicted to prescription pills. History is messy, and sweeping statements should be handled carefully, ideally with oven mitts. But a startling number of women were prescribed sedatives, tranquilizers, sleeping pills, diet pills, stimulants, and assorted little tablets for what doctors often called nerves, which was a wonderfully vague diagnosis, meaning everything from anxiety to exhaustion to "you appear to have noticed your life." The medicine cabinet became a kind of private altar. Tiny bottles, typed labels, cotton stuffed into the top, a child-proof cap nowhere in sight because apparently children in the 1950s were expected to be defeated by simple instruction and furniture height. If you're enjoying what I do here, please like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually want to, no pressure. It genuinely helps the channel more than you might think, and it lets me keep wandering into the strange little cupboards of history with a flashlight and a suspicious expression. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It is always, without fail, 2 a.m. somewhere, and somewhere else. A mother in 1957 is staring into a medicine cabinet wondering whether one tiny pill can make the PTA luncheon feel less like a hostage negotiation. Also, the channel is now on Spotify, so if you'd rather drift off through your headphones, the link is in the description. Now, dim the lights, put a fan on if you've got one, pull that blanket up, let your shoulders drop. Get truly, genuinely comfortable. Because tonight you are about to feel a very deep and slightly guilty gratitude for therapy. Warning labels, refill regulations, modern psychiatry, and the ability to say "I am overwhelmed" without immediately being offered a sedative by a man in a white coat who calls you little lady. But before we begin, let's sit with a few questions. Why were so many middle-class mothers told that exhaustion was a personal flaw rather than an understandable response to doing unpaid labour from dawn until everyone else fell asleep? What exactly was in those little pills doctors handed out for nerves? Why did advertisements suggest that a woman could become a better wife by chemically softening her disappointment? How did a spotless kitchen become a place where emotional distress could hide in plain sight? Why were diet pills, sleeping pills and tranquilizers treated less like serious drugs and more like household tools, somewhere between furniture polish and instant coffee? And most importantly, if you had woken up as a suburban mother in 1950s America, how long would it take before someone diagnosed your entire personality as tension? Congratulations, you've just woken up in the United States. The year is 1957. Eisenhower is president. The baby boom is roaring. Your washing machine is advertised as liberation. Your girdle is advertised as comfort. Your cigarette is advertised by a doctor. And somewhere nearby, a pharmacist is sliding a small amber bottle across the counter with your name on it. Welcome. Please remain cheerful. Let's begin in the morning, because the 1950s mother is already awake before the house has admitted it is alive. The bedroom is dark except for a pale seam of light at the curtains, the kind of early morning light that feels less like sunrise and more like a notice from management. You hear the furnace tick, the baby stir, the milk truck somewhere down the street, and the soft electric hum of a house full of machines that are meant to save labour while quietly creating a new standard of perfection. You sit up carefully, already assembling the day in your head. Breakfast, lunches, laundry, shopping, dusting, school notes, husband's shirts, a casserole, a phone call to your mother, and perhaps, if the Republic survives, 10 minutes alone in the bathroom. Your face has not yet become the face expected of you, but it will. The smile is part of the uniform. So is the dressing gown. So is pretending you slept. You swing your feet onto the cold floor, and the chill comes up through your soles like a small legal objection. Somewhere in the house a child coughs once, which immediately becomes your responsibility. Not the cough itself, perhaps, but its meaning, its future, its possible connection to school attendance, vapor rub, laundry, fever, guilt, and whether the paediatrician will think you are attentive enough. The 1950s household does not merely wake, it begins making claims. Your husband is still asleep, or performing a convincing imitation of a man unavailable for domestic weather. He will rise later into a world already prepared for him. Coffee made, shirt ready, children directed, breakfast arranged, the day softened at the edges by your invisible labour. This is not because he is necessarily cruel. He may be kind, he may work hard, he may love you sincerely. But the house has been organised around the idea that his morning is a launch, while yours is the runway, the crew, the fuel system, and the woman quietly sweeping debris from the tarmac before anyone notices there was a storm. You move to the bathroom where the mirror greets you with the blunt honesty of glass. There are faint shadows beneath your eyes. Your hair has surrendered its shape during the night and now resembles something that happened during a weather event. On the shelf sit cold cream, powder, lipstick, a hairbrush, perhaps a small amber bottle with a white label, waiting with the patient authority of medical respectability. Not every mother reaches for it, but many know it is there, something for sleep, something for nerves, something the doctor said might help take the edge off, as though the edge were a charming decorative feature, not the place where your entire day keeps cutting you. Before anyone sees you, you begin repairs. Face washed, hair pinned, mouth arranged. The transformation is not dramatic. It is more like restoring a storefront before opening hours. The woman in the mirror becomes the mother the house expects, pleasant, efficient, reasonably attractive, and unlikely to frighten the children by admitting that she would like to sit very still in silence until spring. Then the baby cries properly, no longer rehearsing. The sound is thin at first, then full and official, a tiny siren announcing that private thought has been cancelled. You tie your robe, step into the hallway, and the floorboards answer beneath you. The house smells of dust warmed by the furnace, cotton sheets, yesterday's coffee grounds, diaper pail, furniture polish, and the faint sweetness of talcum powder. It is a smell that belongs to respectable domestic life, which is to say it is made of love, soap, fatigue, and things nobody has time to name. In the nursery, the baby is pink-faced and furious, personally offended by mourning. You lift him, warm and damp and impossibly heavy for something so small, and he quiets against your shoulder. For one soft second, the whole machinery pauses. His breath is against your neck, the room is dim, the curtains barely glow. You remember, briefly, that this is not only labour, it is also tenderness. Then he spits up on your robe with excellent timing, because history likes balance. By the time the rest of the family wakes, you will already have changed a diaper, started coffee, planned breakfast, checked the weather, found a missing sock, and begun the emotional performance of the day. The smile will be ready before the toast. It has to be. In 1950s motherhood, sunrise is not the beginning of work. It is merely the moment everyone else starts noticing the results. Let's open the medicine cabinet, because in this house, the truth is not in the diary. It is behind the bathroom mirror. You pull the little chrome door toward you, and there they are, arranged among the toothpaste, cold cream, aspirin tin, bobby pins, iodine, razor blades, and a bottle of pink lotion that claims to solve a skin problem by looking like one. Small brown glass prescription bottles stand in a tidy row, each with a label typed by a pharmacist who knows your husband's name, your doctor's name, and a great deal more about your private distress than your neighbour ever will. Some are for sleep, some are for nerves. Some are for headaches that arrive every Tuesday at precisely the moment the children begin fighting over cereal prizes. None of the labels say, "quiet despair," because that would have made the packaging less elegant. The cabinet itself is small, but it contains an entire private weather system. There is the aspirin for ordinary pain, the kind respectable enough to leave on the bathroom shelf. There is iodine for scraped knees, mercurochrome for children who have damaged themselves in the patriotic pursuit of outdoor play, and cough syrup with a flavour profile somewhere between cherry candy and medical regret. There may be a bottle of smelling salts from an older generation, still present like a tiny Victorian aunt. And then there are the pills that belong to you, although they are not spoken of in quite that way. They are treatments, they are aids, they are something the doctor thought might help. That phrase does a lot of work in 1950s America. Might help. It sounds gentle, modest, almost neighbourly. It does not say that barbiturates can become habit-forming, or that tranquilizers are about to become one of the great pharmaceutical enthusiasms of the decade, or that the distance between taking something occasionally and needing something regularly can become very short when your life offers no structural relief. It simply says, take one as directed. The direction is typed neatly. The rest is left to the patient and the kitchen clock. You pick up one bottle and feel the slight rattle inside. It is a small sound, dry and intimate, like a secret with moving parts. The tablets are pale, ordinary, almost boring. That is part of their power. They do not look dramatic. They do not look like dependency, sedation, tolerance, or the beginning of a relationship you may not fully understand. They look like help. They look like science. They look like a doctor in a clean office saying, "You just need to relax," as though relaxation were a household appliance you had misplaced behind the flour tin. In the 1950s, this was not happening in some shadowy underworld. It was happening in respectable homes, among respectable women, with respectable prescriptions written by respectable doctors. The mother with an amber bottle in her cabinet was not behaving like a scandal. She was following instructions. She was cooperating with medical authority. She was doing what women were so often praised for doing, managing herself quietly so everyone else could remain comfortable. The cabinet door reflects only part of your face when it swings open. One eye, one cheek, the corner of your mouth before the expression is fully arranged. It is an oddly honest mirror. Not the whole woman, just fragments. The tired eye, the powdered skin, the lipstick waiting to be applied, the hand holding the bottle. In another room, a child calls for you with the urgency of someone who has lost a sock and believes this is a constitutional emergency. You set the bottle back carefully, not hidden, exactly, just placed among the ordinary things where it can become ordinary too. Toothpaste, cold cream, aspirin, tranquilizer, bobby pins, soap, sleep. The shelf makes no moral distinctions. It holds everything with the same chrome indifference. Then you close the little mirrored door, and the bathroom becomes respectable again. The bottles vanish. Your face returns. You smooth your hair, straighten your collar, and prepare to go back into the house where breakfast is approaching, the children are assembling grievances, and no one has any reason to suspect that the most honest room in the home is 3 inches deep and mounted above the sink. It's breakfast, and the good news is that everyone will be fed. The bad news is that you are the mechanism by which this miracle occurs. The kitchen smells of percolating coffee, frying bacon, warm toast, damp dishcloth, and the faint metallic odour of the sink where yesterday's spoon somehow escaped justice. You move between the stove and table with the brisk, efficient grace of someone who has done 12 things before anyone has said good morning. Children appear with hair sticking up in small weather systems. And your husband reads the paper with the serene concentration of a man who has never wondered whether the lunchbox thermos is clean. The radio speaks cheerfully from the counter. The announcer's voice is smooth enough to butter toast. You pour coffee, locate shoes, wipe jam, remember permission slips, and swallow your own breakfast standing up, which is not technically a meal but rather an edible interruption. The kitchen is bright in the aggressive way. 1950s kitchens often are, with cheerful colours that seem personally committed to denying fatigue. There may be yellow curtains, a formica table, chrome chair legs, a checked floor, and a refrigerator with a handle sturdy enough to survive both children and the Cold War. Everything has been designed to suggest efficiency. The toaster pops with military confidence. The percolator gurgles as though it has important opinions. The clock above the stove ticks forward with the moral certainty of a judge. You are not merely cooking breakfast, you are staging the family's first performance of order. Eggs must arrive before tempers do. Toast must not burn. The baby must be fed while the older child explains, with legal precision, that he cannot possibly wear those socks because they feel wrong at the toes. A daughter needs her hair brushed and regards the brush as an instrument of tyranny. Someone has spilled milk. Someone else has remembered that today requires a cardboard shoebox for a school project involving either science or patriotism. The distinction is unclear, but urgent. Your husband lowers the newspaper enough to ask whether there is more coffee, which is not a crime, though history briefly considers pressing charges. He is reading about international tensions, labour disputes, baseball scores, and perhaps an advertisement for a new automobile that promises masculine freedom with white-wall tyres. You are managing a smaller but equally delicate geopolitical field involving cereal, napkins, shoes, and whether the youngest child's cough is real or theatrical. No one writes editorials about this. No one signs treaties in the kitchen, yet peace depends on you. Coffee becomes less a beverage than a structural support. It is hot, bitter, slightly metallic from the percolator, and taken quickly between tasks. You drink it because you like it, perhaps, but also because the day has already begun spending energy you do not remember approving. In many homes, coffee, cigarettes, aspirin, and eventually prescribed tablets formed a quiet little toolkit for managing the body through domestic expectation. Not scandalous, not dramatic. Just ordinary reinforcements for an ordinary woman expected to remain pleasant under conditions that would make a modern wellness app burst into flames. The children eat with the suspicious inconsistency of people who were starving 5 minutes ago and are now offended by toast. One wants more jelly. One wants the crust removed. One has placed bacon into a pocket for reasons that may never be understood by science. You wipe faces, issue warnings, refill glasses, and keep an eye on the clock with the calm terror of an air traffic controller watching 3 planes approach the same runway. Meanwhile, the radio continues its bright little sermon from the counter. Music, advertisements, household tips, cheerful voices selling soap flakes, canned fruit, headache remedies, and the idea that life can be made manageable if only you buy the correct product and maintain the correct attitude. The announcer does not mention that your back aches. He does not mention that you are awake at 3. He does not mention that the smile you put on this morning is already beginning to feel like a hat pinned too tightly. By the time everyone leaves the table, the kitchen looks as though a small breakfast-related weather system has passed through it. Crumbs on the floor, egg on a plate, a smear of jelly at child height. The newspaper folded beside an empty cup, the chairs pushed back. The family has been launched into the day, fed, dressed, reminded, corrected, and emotionally stabilized. You stand in the aftermath with your cooling coffee and a piece of toast gone hard at the edge. Breakfast is over. Everyone has eaten. You have performed another miracle before 9 o'clock. Naturally, the dishes are still waiting, because miracles in the 1950s did not include cleanup. Let's talk about appliances, because the 1950s were very proud of them and not always honest about what they meant. The washing machine churns in the corner like a small obedient animal. The vacuum waits in the hallway with its long hose and chrome confidence. The refrigerator hums beneath magnets, notes, and the quiet expectation that cold storage has now solved womanhood. Advertisements promised that modern appliances would give the housewife more leisure, which was technically true in the same way that email was supposed to reduce paperwork. The machines made certain tasks faster, then raised expectations until everything had to be cleaner, brighter, fresher, more organized, and completed with a hairdo that suggested no contact with gravity. You were not freed from labor. You were promoted to manager of a domestic factory where every employee was also you. The laundry alone has opinions. There are sheets, towels, underclothes, children's socks, shirts with collars that insist upon starch, dresses that cannot simply be thrown into water without a small diplomatic consultation, and your husband's work shirts, which must appear each morning as if they have descended from a cloud of masculine competence. The washing machine is modern, yes. It is a marvel compared to hauling water, heating tubs, scrubbing by hand, and wringing fabric until your wrists feel personally betrayed. But it does not gather the clothes, it does not sort them. It does not notice the crayon in the pocket, the loose button, the mystery stain shaped like the state of Ohio, or the fact that one child appears to be wearing dirt as a second garment. You load the machine, measure soap powder, and listen to the churn and slosh from the corner. The sound is meant to be reassuring, a mechanical lullaby of progress, and in many ways it is. Women had spent generations doing housework so physically punishing that a machine capable of washing clothes really was revolutionary. The problem is that the revolution has left you still standing beside it, wiping the lid, planning the next load, and wondering why freedom smells so strongly of bleach. Then there is the vacuum cleaner, It glides across the living room carpet with a confident roar, swallowing lint, crumbs, and the small grey evidence of human existence. Earlier generations beat rugs outdoors, swept floors, shook dust from curtains, and lived with a different standard of household cleanliness because time, tools, and reality required compromise. But in your house, compromise has been quietly removed from the approved list of feminine virtues. Now that the vacuum exists, the carpet should be immaculate. Now that the refrigerator exists, meals should be fresher. Now that canned soups, boxed mixes, frozen vegetables, and electric mixers exist, dinner should be easier, which somehow means it should also be more varied, more attractive, and served with the emotional warmth of a national holiday. You move from room to room with a dust cloth, the television cabinet, the coffee table, the lampshade, the windowsill, the framed photograph, the little ceramic figurine no one likes but everyone keeps because it was a gift from your husband's aunt. Dust is fascinating because it has no respect for effort. You remove it and it begins returning immediately, like a bad habit with excellent punctuality. Advertisements do not show this part. They show a woman in a crisp dress smiling beside a new washer, one hand resting on the appliance as though it has proposed marriage and she has accepted for practical reasons. They show gleaming kitchens, delighted children, husbands amazed by modern convenience, and a housewife whose leisure appears to consist mainly of standing beside machinery in high heels. They do not show the damp basement smell, the sore lower back, the basket of wet clothes, the ironing board waiting like a threat, or the moment you realize the day has become a loop disguised as progress. And yet, you are grateful. Of course you are. The machines do help. They spare labor your grandmother knew too well. They make certain brutal tasks manageable. But gratitude becomes complicated when it is used as a gag. You may not complain because you have appliances. You may not be exhausted because things are easier now. You may not feel trapped because the washing machine has chrome trim. So you keep moving. The washer churns, the vacuum roars, the refrigerator hums. The house shines a little more brightly than it did an hour ago. And somewhere in a magazine, a smiling woman promises that modern life has finally given you time for yourself. Apparently, she has hidden it very carefully. Let's visit the doctor, because you have been tired for 3 years and this is apparently a medical mystery. His office smells of disinfectant, paper files, wool coats, tobacco, and the faint medicinal bitterness of waiting rooms everywhere. You sit in a vinyl chair beneath a framed certificate while a nurse says your name in a tone both professional and faintly maternal. When the doctor enters, he is calm, male, and almost certainly very sure of himself. You describe the headaches, the sleeplessness, the tightness in your chest, the crying that comes at inconvenient moments, the way ordinary noises sometimes feel sharp enough to bruise. He nods. He asks about your husband, your children, your monthly cycle, your housework, perhaps your attitude. The word depression may not appear. The word anxiety may not settle in the room. Instead, like a lace doily placed over a cracked table, he offers the word nerves. Nerves is a beautiful word for a doctor, because it explains everything and commits to almost nothing. It can mean worry, exhaustion, irritability, sadness, faintness, headaches, restlessness, marital disappointment, loneliness, or the strange sensation that your own kitchen has become a very clean trap. It has the soft authority of science without the inconvenience of specificity. Your nerves are bad. Your nerves are strained. Your nerves need settling. The nerves apparently have organized a small rebellion somewhere beneath your good dress, and medical civilization must respond. The doctor may not be unkind. That is the important and rather inconvenient thing. He may sincerely believe he is helping. He has seen many women like you, women who arrive neatly dressed, apologetic, ashamed of symptoms that make perfect sense when placed next to the lives they are expected to live. He has a waiting room full of colds, pregnancies, ulcers, rashes, sore throats, and husbands who need physicals for work. He has 10 minutes, perhaps 15 if he is generous. He does not have a social revolution in the second drawer of his desk. What he does have is a prescription pad. So he listens with one ear to you and one ear to the decade. The decade says a good mother is fulfilled. The decade says modern appliances have made housework easier. The decade says a woman's natural kingdom is the home. The decade says if you are unhappy inside the kingdom, the problem is probably not the kingdom. It may be hormones, it may be tension, it may be fatigue, It may be that you're sensitive, high-strung, run down, or not getting enough rest, which is a fascinating recommendation to make to a woman responsible for everyone else's rest. He takes your blood pressure. He may look in your throat. He may ask whether you are eating properly, as though meals are private little ceremonies you attend in peace rather than scraps of toast consumed while tying a child's shoe. He may ask whether you get out enough. He may suggest a hobby. This is where the conversation becomes especially elegant, because the prescription for domestic suffocation is sometimes a decorative activity performed inside the same domestic structure. Try sewing, try church work, try joining a club, try not being troubled by the conditions troubling you. And then, with the calm flourish of mid-century authority, he writes something down. A sedative, perhaps, a sleeping pill, a tranquilizer, something to take the edge off. The phrase is almost tender, as if the day were a pie crust and only needed trimming. He tears the paper from the pad and hands it to you. The small slip feels official, merciful, and oddly disappointing. Part of you wanted help. Part of you wanted someone to say, "Of course you are tired. This is too much for one person." Instead, you receive chemistry. You thank him. Of course you thank him. You put the prescription in your handbag beside tissues, keys, lipstick, grocery coupons, and a peppermint gone soft in its wrapper. The nurse smiles as you leave. The waiting room smells exactly the same as before. Outside, the daylight is bright and ordinary. Cars pass. A woman pushes a stroller. Somewhere, a church bell rings the hour with great confidence, as though time itself has never been behind on laundry. You walk toward the pharmacy with your handbag tucked under your arm. Your life has not changed. The breakfast dishes still exist. The children will still need you. Dinner will still require invention. Your husband will still ask what's wrong if your face fails to perform contentment at the correct volume. But now there is a name for it, or something like a name. Nerves. A tidy little word for a life that has begun making too much noise. Here comes the prescription, written with a fountain pen and the calm authority of a man sending reinforcements to the suburbs. The pill may be a sedative, a barbiturate, a tranquilizer, or one of the new medications being discussed with great enthusiasm in medical journals, advertisements, and waiting room whispers. It is small, smooth, and almost comically unimpressive to look at. Surely something this tiny cannot reorganize the weather inside your mind. Surely this white tablet, no larger than a breath mint and less festive, cannot be expected to hold back laundry, loneliness, marital disappointment, and the entire emotional architecture of the post-war home. But that is exactly what it has been hired to do. You take it with water from a glass kept beside the sink, and for a little while, the edges of the day seem softer. Not joyful, perhaps. Not transformed. The baby has not become less damp. The laundry has not folded itself in an act of Christian renewal. Your husband has not suddenly understood the mental inventory required to keep a household operating without public collapse, but the clock seems less accusatory. The children's voices no longer strike the nerves quite so directly. The pan in the sink, with its stubborn ring of egg, becomes only a pan, not a legal indictment of your character. That was the promise. Calm without confession, relief without requiring anyone to rearrange the furniture of society. A pill did not ask why you were lonely. It did not ask why a woman surrounded by children, neighbours, appliances, committees, and cheerful magazines might feel strangely erased. It simply entered the bloodstream and lowered the volume. In a decade allergic to emotional mess, this was an extremely attractive feature. Feelings could be inconvenient. Pharmacology had the courtesy to be small enough to fit in a handbag. And it is important to understand that you do not think of yourself as doing anything dramatic. You are not a scandalous woman in a dim room making reckless choices. You are a respectable mother in a clean kitchen following medical instructions. The doctor said it might help. The pharmacist filled it. The bottle has your name on it. The directions are typed. Everything about the experience has been stamped with authority, folded into normal life, and placed neatly beside the aspirin. At first, the relief may feel almost miraculous. The afternoon has always been the dangerous stretch, the long domestic valley between lunch and dinner, when the house becomes untidy again out of spite. The children become bored with the concept of civilization, and your own body begins asking whether anyone in management has approved a break. You feel the usual pressure gathering behind your eyes. You remember the bottle. You take one, as directed. And slowly the room changes, not visibly. The curtains remain the same. The refrigerator hums its loyal little hymn. The linoleum still waits to be swept. But something inside you unclenches. This is where dependence can begin without announcing itself. Not with ruin, not with drama, not with a woman fainting onto a chaise longue in a silk robe, but with a Tuesday that becomes more bearable. Then another Tuesday. Then a difficult Thursday. Then the day your mother visits and suggests the children need firmer discipline while eating your coffee cake. A pill for sleep. A pill for nerves. Something for headaches. Something to help you get through a week that looks, from the outside, like a very nice life. The danger is that the pill solves just enough to keep the larger problem alive. It lets you keep moving. It lets the family keep functioning. It lets the house stay pleasant. The meals arrive. The voice remain even. The smile hold. Everyone benefits from your softened distress, which is very convenient for everyone, except the woman dissolving quietly behind it. By late afternoon, you may even feel grateful. The kitchen is warm. The children are occupied. Dinner is possible. Your hands are steady as you open a can, stir a pot, wipe the counter, and look out the window at the tidy street beyond the glass. The world has not changed. Only your ability to endure it has been chemically adjusted. And in 1950s America, that was often considered close enough. Let's talk about Milltown, because in the mid-1950s, it did not simply enter American medicine. It arrived like a celebrity guest at a very tense dinner party. Introduced in 1955, meprobamate was marketed as a new kind of tranquilizer, a pill that could smooth anxiety without knocking a person flat in the manner of older sedatives. Doctors prescribed it widely. Magazines discussed it. Patients asked for it by name. The word tranquilizer itself sounded almost luxurious, like a small private lake installed somewhere behind the ribs. For a mother juggling children, marriage, housework, social expectations, and the requirement to appear grateful for all of it, the promise was astonishing. Not a cure for the structure of her life. Not help with the dishes, not paid labour protections, shared childcare, or someone asking whether she had slept. Just tranquility, compressed. And what a promise that was. In a decade that liked its women calm, its carpets clean, its husbands respected, and its children emotionally nourished but not too noisy about it, a pill that offered composure felt almost tailor-made for the suburban morning. Older sedatives could leave a person heavy, dulled, and visibly impaired, which was awkward if you still had to make lunch, attend a school meeting, and explain to a child why paste was not technically food. Milltown seemed to offer something more elegant. Not oblivion. Adjustment. Not sleep. Smoothness. It was marketed as a medication that could help people function, which is a very attractive phrase when the entire culture has decided your highest calling is to keep functioning. You hear about it first from the doctor, perhaps, or from another woman lowering her voice over coffee. She says it helps. She does not say exactly with what. In 1950s womanhood, the object of help is often left politely unnamed. It helps with tension, it helps with nerves, it helps with that feeling around 4 o'clock when the children are sticky, dinner is theoretical, and the walls of your pleasant house appear to be standing slightly closer together than they were at breakfast. The pill becomes part of the vocabulary of respectable distress. It is not whispered about like gin hidden under the sink. It is not treated like a moral failure. It has come from a physician, passed through the pharmacy, and entered the home by the front door. There is tremendous power in that route. A woman could tell herself, correctly, that she was not inventing anything, not indulging anything, not rebelling against the role assigned to her. She was taking medicine. Medicine sounded modern. Medicine sounded rational. Medicine sounded much better than admitting that the beautiful life everyone congratulated her on felt, some afternoons, like a room without a handle. By the late 1950s, tranquilizers had become symbols of scientific progress and private relief. The age loved progress. It had washing machines, television sets, frozen dinners, better highways, new suburbs, and now, apparently, pharmaceutical calm. If the modern kitchen could reduce the effort of cooking and cleaning, surely the modern pill could reduce the emotional friction of being alive inside the modern kitchen. It was a tidy theory. It fit very nicely beside the toaster. But the pill did not remove the cause. That was the quiet trick. It softened the response. The dishes remained. The loneliness remained. The expectation that you should be fulfilled by service remained freshly polished and waiting in the living room. Milltown and drugs like it could make the day feel more manageable, and that mattered. Relief is real, even when it is incomplete. But relief could also become a method of keeping the larger machinery undisturbed. If you were calmer, no one had to ask why you had been so tense. And of course, there were risks because history enjoys adding a trapdoor beneath every convenience. Meprobamate could cause drowsiness, dependence, withdrawal symptoms, and dangerous interactions with alcohol or other sedatives. None of this looked alarming on a neat prescription label sitting beside toothpaste and cold cream. The bottle remained small. The tablets remained pale. The woman taking them remained respectable. So you take one, perhaps after lunch, perhaps before the difficult part of the afternoon begins. The sunlight falls across the linoleum. The refrigerator hums. Somewhere down the hall, a child is singing the same line of a song with the persistence of a government agency. The pill goes down with water, simple and silent. For a while, the house is still the same house, but it seems to ask a little less loudly. Now it is night, and the house is finally quiet enough for you to hear how loud your own mind has become. The children are asleep. The dishes are stacked. Your husband is breathing heavily in the next room, with the peaceful confidence of someone whose brain has closed for business. You, however, are staring at the ceiling while tomorrow assembles itself with military discipline. This is where sleeping pills enter the story. Barbiturates had been prescribed for decades as sedatives and hypnotics, and by the 1950s they were part of the pharmaceutical landscape of respectable households. They could help you sleep, certainly. They could also be habit-forming, dangerous in overdose, and especially risky when mixed with alcohol, which many people did not understand with the clarity one might hope. The pill promised rest. It also asked you not to read the future too closely. The bedroom is dim, washed in the blue-grey light that comes through curtains from a street lamp outside. A car passes slowly, tyres whispering over pavement. Somewhere in the house, a pipe knocks once and settles. The clock on the nightstand ticks with the calm cruelty of an object that has never had to pack a lunch. You lie still, because stillness is what one does when sleep refuses to arrive. Moving would be an admission. Turning over would be negotiations. Sitting up would mean the enemy has won. And the enemy tonight is thought. Not one thought, neatly labelled and manageable, but hundreds of small domestic thoughts moving in formation. Did you sign the school form? Is there enough milk? Did the baby feel warm? Did your husband seem annoyed at dinner? Should you call your mother tomorrow? Why did you say that thing to the neighbour? Is the roast thawing? Why are you so tired when you have so many modern conveniences? Why, in a house full of appliances, does your mind still feel like it is washing everything by hand? This is the hour when exhaustion becomes strangely alert. During the day, you may have longed for bed with the devotion of a pilgrim approaching a shrine. But now that you are here, under the sheet, hair-pinned or brushed out, face cleaned of lipstick and powder, the body refuses the very gift it demanded. It is one of history's smaller insults, but a dependable one. So the little bottle on the nightstand becomes persuasive. It does not shout, it does not threaten. It simply waits with medical dignity. You remember the doctor's voice, steady and practical. Take as directed. One tablet when needed. The phrase when needed is elastic enough to fit around almost any midnight. You reach for the glass of water. The pill is small, smooth, and bitter if it lingers too long on the tongue, so you swallow quickly, because even relief has manners. For many people, barbiturates did what they promised. They quieted the nervous system. They pulled sleep closer. They offered a door out of the bright, busy room of thought. But they were not gentle companions. The margin between a calming dose and a dangerous one could be narrow, especially when combined with alcohol, another common evening ritual in respectable homes. A cocktail before dinner, a sedative after midnight, a sleeping pill when the first one did not seem enough. No villain required. Just ordinary habits meeting insufficient warnings in a dim bedroom. And this is what makes the story so quietly frightening. It was not always recklessness. It was trust. Trust in the doctor. Trust in the label. Trust in the idea that if something came from a pharmacy, in a bottle with your name neatly typed on it, it belongs safely to the ordinary world. The same world as aspirin, cough syrup, cold cream, and toothpaste. The same world as bedtime. Slowly, perhaps, the edges soften. The thoughts lose their sharp little shoes. The ceiling no longer seems so involved in your personal failure. The clock still ticks, but from farther away. Your body begins to sink, not into peace exactly, but into something that resembles surrender closely enough to be useful. Tomorrow will arrive anyway. It always does. The breakfast table, the school shoes, the laundry, the groceries, the smile. But for now, the house is dark, the bottle is still, and sleep comes at last like a visitor who should have arrived hours ago and offers no apology whatsoever. Let's step onto the bathroom scale, an object that has never improved a morning. The baby weight is still there. Or perhaps the second baby weight has joined the first in a kind of soft domestic coalition. Advertisements show cheerful women reclaiming their figures with girdles, low-calorie meals, appetite suppressants, and a level of optimism that should have required a license. In the 1950s, amphetamine-based diet pills were prescribed to women who were expected to be mothers, cooks, cleaners, lovers, hostesses, and decorative evidence of their husband's success, all while remaining slim enough to suggest they had never personally encountered a sandwich. The pill did not simply reduce appetite. It could increase energy, sharpen mood, and make exhaustion briefly negotiable. This was extremely convenient, which is not the same thing as safe. The bathroom is cold under your feet, and the scale waits with the smug patience of a small mechanical judge. You step on carefully, as if politeness might influence physics. The needle trembles, wobbles, then settles on a number that feels less like information and more like a personal accusation. Nothing in the room acknowledges that your body has produced a human being, perhaps more than one, and has done so while being expected to return promptly to attractiveness, domestic efficiency, and a waistline acceptable to both your husband and the makers of foundation garments. The magazines are very clear on the subject. Motherhood is sacred, but softness is suspicious. A woman may be praised for sacrificing herself to children, but not if the sacrifice has left visible evidence around the hips. The same culture that tells you to bake, serve, nourish, and keep everyone fed also suggests that eating too much of what you prepare is a failure of discipline. This is the kind of contradiction that should have been stored in a locked cabinet and studied by experts. But instead, it was placed casually beside recipes for pineapple upside-down cake. So you try the approved methods. You eat cottage cheese with a seriousness it has not earned. You count calories. You drink black coffee and call it breakfast. You wear a girdle that grips your middle with the moral certainty of a loan officer. You stand in front of the mirror and pull yourself into shape using elastic, hooks, panels, and hope. The result is smooth enough under a dress, provided you do not inhale ambitiously or sit down with emotional honesty. And then there are the pills. A doctor may prescribe them, a friend may mention them, an advertisement may hint that modern science can help you regain your figure, your confidence, and perhaps the admiration of a husband who has not personally been asked to regain anything after fatherhood except his car keys. Amphetamine-based appetite suppressants had been used medically for weight loss by this period, and they brought with them more than a smaller appetite. They could make you feel alert, energetic, capable, even brightened. For a woman moving through the long corridor of housework, childcare, and carefully managed appearance, that feeling could be seductive. You take one in the morning, perhaps with coffee, which is less a beverage now than a supporting institution. The day sharpens. The laundry seems possible. The grocery list becomes a mission. The kitchen, which yesterday felt like a padded cell with curtains, now appears manageable, perhaps even conquerable. You move faster. You snack less. You feel useful, which is one of the most dangerous feelings a drug can offer when usefulness has become the measure of your worth. But the body keeps accounts. Stimulants can disturb sleep, raise the heart rate, increase anxiety, and create a restless inner pressure that does not vanish simply because dinner has been served. A pill that helps you move through the day may make the night harder. A night made harder may require something else to sleep. And so the domestic cycle quietly acquires chemistry at both ends. Something to go up, something to come down, something to soften the middle. No one planned a dependency. It arrived in installments, each one labelled as help. By afternoon, your dress fits a little differently, or perhaps you only feel more in command of it. You stand at the counter slicing carrots, light-headed but efficient, while the children argue in the next room with the stamina of trained litigators. The scale has not apologized. The magazines have not relented. The body that carried babies, lost sleep, cooked meals, climbed stairs, bent over cribs, and held the whole house together is still being asked to disappear into a smaller size. And because this is the 1950s, someone will call that self-improvement. It's mid-morning, and the kitchen table has become a small command centre. There is coffee in a thick ceramic cup, a cigarette burning in an ashtray, grocery coupons clipped from the newspaper, and a list written in pencil because ink feels too permanent for a day already changing shape. The cigarette is not hidden. It is practically a household accessory, advertised with smiling women and sometimes even reassurances from doctors, because the past enjoyed placing future lawsuits directly in magazines. Coffee keeps you moving. Cigarettes steady the hands. Diet pills, when prescribed, can turn fatigue into speed. The result is not exactly health. It is more like running the household on a mixture of caffeine, nicotine, social pressure, and the sincere belief that if you sit down too long, the entire family system may notice. The coffee is dark and hot and slightly overcooked from sitting too long in the percolator, which has been bubbling away with the dedication of a small industrial plant. You drink it quickly, not because it is pleasant in the way modern coffee people discuss pleasantness, with notes of chocolate, citrus, and moral superiority, but because it performs a function. It enters the body and begins issuing memos. Stand up, keep going, fold that, wipe this, find the missing library book, remember the roast. Do not, under any circumstances, look too long out the window. The cigarette rests between your fingers like a tiny white pause. It gives the hand something to do that is not scrubbing, lifting, stirring, ironing, buttoning, wiping, or pointing toward a child's shoes. The smoke curls upward in the kitchen light, blue and delicate, making the room look briefly cinematic, which is generous of it, considering the sink still contains a pan with egg welded to the surface. In the 1950s, smoking is not yet the scandal it will become. It is social, stylish, ordinary, sold in advertisements, where elegant women appear refreshed by inhaling something that future public health campaigns will regard with the facial expression of a disappointed school principal. And because you are a mother, even your small vices are expected to be tidy. You tap the ash carefully. You keep the cigarette away from the baby's reach. You open a window slightly, not enough to chill the room, just enough to pretend ventilation has joined the household. You may not think of it as self-medication, because that phrase sounds too modern, too serious, too much like something that belongs in a pamphlet. It is simply what people do. Coffee in the morning. A cigarette with the grocery list. Maybe another while waiting for the washing machine to finish. Tiny rituals of steadiness, threaded through the day like stitches holding fabric together. If diet pills are part of your morning, they add another layer to the machinery. The pill does not arrive wearing a villain's cape, it arrives as assistance. The doctor may have mentioned weight. The magazine may have mentioned energy. Your dress may have felt tight around the waist in a way that suggested betrayal by both fabric and biology. An appetite suppressant promises to help with all of it. Less hunger. More motion, better mood. A little chemical breeze behind the sails. For a while, the result can feel useful. You move faster through the kitchen. The coupons sort themselves into categories. The laundry basket seems less impossible. The house, that cheerful beast, appears briefly manageable. You are alert, perhaps even bright. The refrigerator hums, the clock ticks. The children's toys lie scattered in the living room like evidence from a small, colourful crime scene. You can handle it. You can handle all of it. This is the dangerous part, because any substance that makes an unreasonable life feel reasonable has made a very persuasive argument. By noon, your stomach may feel hollow, but not hungry. Your hands may be slightly too quick. Your thoughts may skip ahead to the next task before the current one has the courtesy to finish. You drink more coffee because the first cup has become the foundation for a larger architectural project. You light another cigarette because the moment between errands requires punctuation. The day becomes a series of small boosts and smaller silences. None of this looks dramatic from the outside. A neighbour glancing through the window sees a woman at a kitchen table, smoking, drinking coffee, writing a list. Respectable, ordinary, domestic. She does not see the pressure system beneath the dress, the private negotiation between exhaustion and performance, the way a body can be treated like an appliance expected to run smoothly because someone remembered to plug it into enough stimulants. You stub out the cigarette, drain the cup, and stand. The table is scattered with ash, coupons, crumbs, and plans. Morning is not over. It has merely changed shifts. Let's look at the magazines, because they understood the 1950s mother with unnerving precision and almost no mercy. The pages are glossy, smelling faintly of ink and perfume samples, filled with smiling women in immaculate kitchens, glowing appliances, cheerful children, and headlines promising relief, energy, slenderness, calm, beauty, better digestion, whiter laundry, and a marriage improved by the correct canned soup. Pharmaceutical advertising often spoke directly to doctors, but popular magazines helped build the emotional climate in which women understood themselves as both responsible for everyone's happiness and personally defective when they could not maintain it. If you were tense, tired, irritable, overweight, sleepless, weepy, or simply bored past the point of politeness, there was a product nearby suggesting the problem lived inside you. The house was fine. The culture was fine. The pill bottle apparently was where reform should begin. You sit at the kitchen table with a magazine open beside your coffee cup. The children are briefly occupied, which in domestic time means you have approximately 4 minutes before someone loses a toy, a temper, or confidence in the American project. The page shows a woman in a spotless dress leaning happily over a stove, her waist small, her lipstick perfect, her expression suggesting that no potato has ever disappointed her. Behind her, the cabinets shine, the floor shines, the children shine. Even the casserole appears emotionally well adjusted. The magazine does not ask whether you are lonely. It asks whether your skin is dull. It does not ask whether you have spoken to another adult honestly this week. It asks whether your husband still notices you. It does not ask why the work of keeping a house is endless and unpaid. It asks whether your laundry is truly white. This is the genius of the advertising world. It takes a life-sized problem, folds it neatly, and places it inside a product small enough to purchase. There are advertisements for headache powders, tonics, laxatives, vitamins, reducing plans, deodorants, girdles, cold creams, hairsprays, cigarettes, coffee, breakfast cereals, and little remedies for that vague, delicate complaint called being a woman with a nervous system. The language is soft, but the message is firm. If you are not happy, try harder. If trying harder has failed, buy something. If buying something has failed, ask your doctor whether modern medicine can make you easier to live with. This is where the culture becomes especially clever, in the way a mousetrap is clever. It does not say outright that you are inadequate. That would be rude, and rudeness is not good for sales. Instead, it shows you an image of perfect domestic womanhood and lets you perform the comparison privately. Her kitchen is cleaner, her children are calmer, her husband is more grateful. Her waist is narrower. Her roast has not collapsed in the middle like a tired empire. You, meanwhile, have coffee cooling beside you, a run in your stocking, and a feeling behind your eyes that might be rage if anyone had given it a respectable name. The pharmaceutical world enters this emotional marketplace with a white coat and a gentle voice. Doctor-directed advertisements could present tranquilizers, sedatives, and stimulants as modern answers to tension, fatigue, sleeplessness, and the nervous complaints of everyday life. The patient in these ads was often not gravely ill. She was overwhelmed, irritable, unable to adjust, poorly rested, difficult, tense. In other words, she was responding to ordinary pressure in a way that had become inconvenient to the smooth operation of home, marriage, and commerce. And you are surrounded by these instructions. They arrive in magazines, on radio, in television commercials, in the advice of friends, in the doctor's office, in the pharmacy, in the voice of your mother saying women have always managed. Every message points inward. Fix your figure, fix your mood, fix your face, fix your attitude, fix your nerves. The larger world remains untouched, sitting politely in the parlour with its shoes on the rug. You turn the page. Another smiling woman offers another promise. Whiter sheets, calmer mornings, better dinners, a fresher complexion, a happier family. The future can be yours, apparently, in exchange for 4 box tops, a doctor's appointment, and the willingness to believe that your exhaustion is a personal maintenance issue. The magazine lies open, bright and confident, while the real kitchen waits around it. Crumbs on the table, dishes in the sink, a child calling from the hallway, the clock advancing without compassion. The advertisement has diagnosed you again. Fortunately, it has also brought coupons. Let's talk about marriage, carefully, because the coffee is hot and the walls are thin. Your husband may be kind, he may be tired. He may be carrying his own post-war expectations, job pressures, memories, disappointments, and fears he has no language for. But he also returns each evening to a home that society has promised will restore him. The house should be calm, the children should be clean, dinner should appear. You should be attractive, affectionate, and emotionally available without ever becoming inconveniently human. If you are anxious, the problem is nerves. If you are angry, the problem is temperament. If you are sad, perhaps you need rest, or a tonic, or a little something from the doctor. The marriage may contain love, but it is built inside a system that has given one person a salary and the other person a prescription. The evening begins before he arrives. You hear the car before you see it, the familiar sound of tyres against the driveway, the engine settling, the door closing with a heavy metallic confidence. The house responds immediately, not visibly perhaps, but you feel it. The children are told to lower their voices. A toy is kicked discreetly beneath a chair. The table is checked. Your hair is touched. Your face rearranges itself into something warmer, softer, more welcoming than whatever expression it was wearing 3 seconds before. This is called making a home. It is also, if we are being honest, stage management. There is nothing inherently wrong with wanting the house to feel peaceful when someone comes home. Peace is lovely. Everyone likes peace. The issue is that in the 1950s, peace was often understood as something a wife produced for a husband rather than something the whole family built together. His workday had an official ending. Yours simply changed rooms. He came home from work. You were standing inside yours holding a spoon. He may kiss your cheek. He may ask what is for dinner. He may loosen his tie with the weary nobility of a man who has endured office politics, traffic, and possibly a supervisor named Mr. Henderson. You listen sympathetically, because his fatigue is allowed to enter the room fully clothed and sit down. Your fatigue remains in the kitchen, wearing an apron and checking the potatoes. If you tell him the children were difficult, you risk sounding negative. If you say you are tired, he may say, quite reasonably in his own mind, that everyone is tired. If you say you are lonely, the sentence may land awkwardly between the meatloaf and the green beans, when no one knows what utensil to use on it. If you cry, he may become alarmed, then helpless, then irritated at his helplessness, and the whole evening may tilt. So you choose the safer performance. You serve dinner, you ask about his day, you keep your voice smooth. The pill bottle enters here not as a villain, but as a domestic assistant. Something to take before the hard hour. Something to help with the edge in your voice. Something to prevent the argument before it happens. A tranquilizer can seem less like escape and more like manners in tablet form. It helps you become the woman the room requires. Pleasant, measured, patient, lightly cheerful, and not currently in possession of any opinions that require structural reform. This is not to say the marriage is loveless. That would be too simple, and history is rarely kind enough to be simple. There may be tenderness here. There may be real companionship. There may be evenings when he makes you laugh, when the children are sweet, when the living room lamp glows warmly, and the whole arrangement feels not oppressive but safe. Those moments are real too. The trouble is that love does not automatically cancel inequality. A comfortable chair can still be placed inside a locked room. After dinner he may retreat to the newspaper or the television. You clear plates. The sound of the faucet fills the kitchen. From the living room comes canned laughter, applause, a cheerful announcer selling cigarettes or shaving cream, another voice promising better living through modern products. You stand at the sink, hands in warm water, watching grease bloom across the surface like weather on a map. Behind you, the family is restored. In front of you, the dishes wait. You have kept the evening pleasant. That, apparently, is the achievement. No one applauds. But then, good wives are not supposed to need applause. It's after school now, and the front door bursts open with lunchboxes, coats, crumbs, playground grievances, and the unique smell of children who have been inside a school building all day. You are waiting with snacks, questions, a damp cloth, and an expression that says nothing is wrong because children are excellent emotional detectives and must therefore be misled for their own good. In the 1950s, motherhood was wrapped in ideals of cheerful sacrifice. A good mother did not burden her children with her unhappiness. She absorbed noise, fear, illness, mess, and disappointment into herself like a human sofa cushion. The pills were part of that invisibility. They helped smooth the surface. They helped keep the voice soft, the hand steady, the afternoon from cracking open. The children saw cookies. They did not see chemistry. The kitchen changes instantly. A moment ago it was almost orderly, not clean exactly, but arranged in a way that suggested adulthood had not fully lost the war. Now there are shoes in the wrong place, mittens missing their moral partners, a school paper requiring attention, and one child explaining that someone named Billy has committed an offence so grave it may require federal review. The baby, who had been quiet for 12 blessed minutes, hears the household return and decides to rejoin public life at full volume. You ask about school, you slice apples, you pour milk, you listen to stories that arrive without sequence, punctuation, or concern for legal evidence. Someone got in trouble. Someone did not get in trouble but should have. Someone has a spelling test. Someone hates spelling. Someone has discovered that paste, while still not food, has qualities worth discussing. You nod, respond, correct, soothe, separate, wipe, and keep the whole emotional weather system from becoming a thunderstorm. This is the strange tenderness of it. You love them. Of course you love them. Their faces are sticky, serious, bright, unbearable, and beloved. You know the precise weight of each child's body when tired. You know which cough is ordinary and which one means a fever by morning. You know the tone of a lie before the sentence is finished. You know who needs a sandwich and who needs silence and who needs to be held without admitting it. The love is not in question. The exhaustion is also not in question. History, unfortunately, often behaved as though only one of these facts could be true at a time. The 1950s mother was expected to enjoy children in a way that did not disturb the fantasy of motherhood. She was allowed to be busy, but not resentful, tired, but not bitter, worried, but not overwhelmed. She could sigh gently, perhaps, in a feminine way over a pile of laundry, but she could not say that the constant need had begun to sand away the edges of her own personhood. That kind of honesty would have made everyone uncomfortable, and comfort was, inconveniently, her department. So you become practiced at translation. Mother needs a minute becomes, let's all play quietly. I am at the end of myself becomes, who wants cocoa? If one more person says my name, I may dissolve into the wallpaper becomes, use your indoor voice, darling. The language of distress is converted into snacks, routines, and cheerful redirection. This is not deception exactly. It is protection. You are protecting them from fear. You are protecting yourself from judgment. You are protecting the house from the knowledge that its central support beam is tired. The pill, if there is one, waits behind the mirror or in the handbag. It offers the possibility of not snapping when the milk spills, not crying when the homework is lost, not hearing every shout as a nail driven into the skull. It does not make the children less demanding. It does not make motherhood less relentless. It simply gives you a little more distance between the feeling and the response, which can feel like grace when the afternoon is loud enough. By dusk, the children will remember cookies, homework, perhaps a story read on the sofa. They may remember your hands smoothing hair, your voice telling them to wash properly, your figure moving from stove to sink to table in the soft kitchen light. They will not remember the moment you leaned against the counter with your eyes closed, breathing carefully while the kettle rattled and the house asked for one more thing. That is the achievement. That is also the tragedy. You kept them safe from your fraying, and no one thought to keep you safe from the thread. Let's go to the supermarket, because the 1950s grocery store is not just a place to buy food. It is a brightly lit theatre of competence. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, carts rattle, freezers hum, canned goods stack themselves into patriotic abundance. Other mothers glide past in lipstick and sensible shoes, each one pretending not to inspect the contents of every other cart with the quiet intensity of a customs officer. You compare prices, plan meals, remember preferences, calculate budgets, and choose foods that must suggest thrift, care, modernity, and a willingness to suspend fruit in gelatin. The post-war supermarket is abundance made architectural, but abundance comes with its own pressure. A good mother chooses correctly. A bad choice may not ruin the family, but it can certainly ruin Thursday. The automatic doors, if your town has reached that level of retail confidence, open with a soft mechanical glide, and you step into a world arranged to make plenty look effortless. A pyramid of oranges glows near the entrance. Lettuce rests beneath mist. Packages of meat lie under glass, pink and orderly, as though no animal or butcher had been involved. Just a committee of cheerful scientists producing dinner in tidy portions. The store smells of waxed floor, cardboard, cold air, coffee, produce, and the faintly sweet perfume of packaged bread. You push the cart forward, and one wheel immediately develops a personality. It squeaks, pulls slightly left, and announces your progress down every aisle like a small metal informant. You have a list in your handbag, but the list is only the official document. The real list lives in your head. What your husband likes, what one child refuses this week, what can be stretched into leftovers, what can be served to company without implying financial distress, what will fit the budget, what will look sufficiently modern, what your mother would disapprove of, what the magazine says is exciting, what no one will eat, but which is on sale, and therefore enters consideration as a patriotic experiment. This is where convenience foods shine with seductive authority. Canned soup, boxed cake mix, frozen vegetables, instant pudding, powdered drinks, prepared sauces, sliced bread, packaged cereals with cartoon mascots radiating moral chaos. These products promise time saved, effort reduced, meals made more interesting, and domestic life brought into the age of technology. They also bring a small social puzzle. Use too many shortcuts, and you risk appearing lazy. Use none, and you are rejecting progress, which is practically treason with an apron. So you learn the art of partial concealment. A boxed cake may be improved with a personal touch. A canned soup may become a casserole if introduced properly to noodles, cheese, and optimism. Frozen peas can be presented as sensible rather than desperate. The trick is to use modern convenience while still performing old-fashioned devotion, which is a very 1950s arrangement. The machine helps, but the woman must still look as though love did the work. Other women pass you in the aisles. Mrs. Henderson from 2 streets over has a roast in her cart which feels pointed, although it probably is not. Mrs. Miller has 3 boxes of cereal and no visible vegetables, which you notice while pretending not to notice, because civilization depends on this delicate hypocrisy. Everyone is reading everyone else's household through groceries. Too much prepared food suggests carelessness. Too little suggests grimness. Too many sweets suggests indulgence. Too much economy suggests trouble. The cart becomes a rolling autobiography nobody asked to publish. And the pressure is not only social, it is financial. Many families live on one income, and the grocery budget is one of the few places where a housewife is expected to demonstrate both creativity and restraint. You clip coupons, compare ounces, choose cheaper cuts and think in meals rather than items. A chicken is not a chicken. It is Sunday dinner, Monday sandwiches, Tuesday soup, and perhaps, if you are feeling especially resourceful, a broth that looks at water and says, "We can make this work." Near the checkout, candy waits at child height, because commerce has no conscience. The cashier rings each item with quick metallic punches. You watch the total rise and make private adjustments to the rest of the week. The bags are packed. The cart is heavier now, full of nourishment, expectation, and several products promising to make life easier after requiring you to carry them home. Outside, the sun flashes on car windshields. You load the groceries, return the cart, and prepare to turn abundance back into meals. The supermarket has given you everything. Naturally, dinner is still your problem. It's evening, and you are sitting in a school auditorium on a folding chair designed by someone with unresolved hostility toward the spine. Around you are other mothers in neat dresses, clipped hats, gloves, handbags, and identical expressions of civic endurance. The PTA meeting smells of floor wax, paper programs, damp coats, and coffee poured from an urn large enough to suggest institutional regret. Everyone is fine. Everyone says they are fine. The bake sale is discussed. The Halloween carnival is discussed. Someone mentions classroom curtains with the seriousness of foreign policy. Beneath the calm surface, half the room is exhausted. One woman is quietly furious, another has not slept properly in weeks, and several know exactly which doctor prescribes without too many questions. Community is present. Honesty, however, has sent its apologies. The principal stands at the front with a stack of papers and the solemn air of a man announcing agricultural statistics. Beside him, a blackboard lists committee names in chalk, each one more cheerful than the last. Hospitality, decorations, refreshments, fundraising, safety. These words sound harmless until you realize every one of them requires a woman to make phone calls, bake something, arrange chairs, wash tablecloths, collect money, and pretend that folding paper pumpkins is a meaningful civic contribution rather than a test of moral stamina. You sit with your handbag balanced on your knees, because placing it on the floor feels unwise and putting it on the chair beside you would imply you expect personal space. Inside the bag are tissues, lipstick, keys, grocery coupons, a pencil, a peppermint, and perhaps the quiet little bottle you do not intend to use here but are glad to know exists. There is comfort in preparedness. Modern motherhood has trained you to carry solutions for every emergency except the emergency of being yourself. Mrs. Caldwell leans over and whispers that you look tired, in the tone women use when the statement is both concern and inspection. You smile and say the baby was up last night. This is safe. Babies are an acceptable explanation for exhaustion. They are small, innocent alibis with blankets. You do not say you were awake long after everyone else had settled, listening to the radiator tick and wondering why your life, which contains so many good things, sometimes feels like a room slowly filling with cotton. The meeting continues. Someone asks whether the children should bring homemade treats or store-bought. This causes a silence of surprising moral weight. Homemade means devotion. Store-bought means convenience. Store-bought arranged on a plate and dusted with powdered sugar means diplomacy. A compromise is proposed. It will be discussed further by committee, because civilization has not yet suffered enough. Around you, the other mothers sit upright, ankles crossed, gloves folded neatly, expressions mild. They are experts in appearing composed under fluorescent light. One has a husband who drinks too much. One is caring for a sick parent. One has 5 children and no car during the day. One is afraid she is pregnant again. One has been taking something for nerves since spring and has not told her sister. One is lonely enough to enjoy this meeting, which is perhaps the saddest fact in the room and also the most understandable. Because the PTA is not only obligation, it is also contact. It is a place where adult voices gather. It is a reason to leave the house wearing earrings. It is an evening where someone else's worries briefly take official form on an agenda. The cause may be curtains or fundraising or playground gravel, but beneath it is a hunger for usefulness beyond the kitchen. You are not only wiping faces here, you are voting, you are serving, you are being seen, even if no one is looking too closely. And yet the seeing has limits. No one stands up and says that motherhood is harder than advertised. No one asks whether the doctors are handing out tranquilizers because women are ill, or because the arrangement is. No one suggests that perhaps the school, the church, the neighborhood, the husbands, the entire shining post-war machine might share some responsibility for the pressure collecting inside these women like steam under a lid. Instead, the minutes are approved, refreshments are served, coffee is poured into paper cups thin enough to threaten the fingers. Someone compliments your cookies. You say thank you. Someone asks if you can help with the next event. You hear yourself say yes before your body has authorized the commitment. The meeting ends. Chairs scrape, coats are gathered. The mothers drift toward the parking lot under the yellow school lights, each carrying a handbag, a program, and the polished silence of a woman who has once again passed inspection. Everyone was fine. It says so in the minutes. Let's pick up the telephone, because before group chats, women had cords. The receiver is heavy and black, or perhaps pastel, if your household has embraced progress aggressively. It sits on a small table in the hall, where privacy goes to die. You call a neighbour, your sister, your mother, another woman who understands that, "How are you?" is not a question but a coded exchange requiring skill. The children thunder past. Someone needs help with a shoe. You lower your voice. In the 1950s, the telephone could be a lifeline for mothers isolated in suburbs built for cars they might not have during the day. It could carry gossip, recipes, warnings, comfort, and sometimes the most honest sentence of the week whispered between chores. I don't know what's wrong with me. The answer, sadly, was often waiting in a bottle. The telephone table is its own little domestic shrine. There may be a notepad beside it, a pencil tied with string, and a dress book with names written in careful script, and perhaps a small chair positioned so you can sit for precisely as long as the house allows, which is usually less time than the phone company intended. The cord coils like a black tail from the wall to the receiver, giving you just enough freedom to turn away from the children, but not enough to escape into another room, unless your household has invested in a longer cord, which feels almost reckless. You dial carefully, listening to the clicks return beneath your finger. Each number takes time, because even contacting another human being has been designed as a small mechanical ceremony. The ring sounds distant and hollow, then a voice answers, and for 1 second the room changes. You are no longer only a woman in a hallway with a dish towel over one shoulder. You are connected. The conversation begins safely. Weather, children, groceries, the price of meat. A recipe involving canned pineapple that neither of you fully trusts but both agree sounds festive. You trade practical intelligence, which is the ancient language of women managing households under conditions nobody has officially admitted are difficult. Which doctor listens? Which store has cheaper coffee? Which teacher is strict? Which neighbour has been seen crying in her car and should perhaps be invited over without mentioning why? Then, if the line is quiet enough and the children are far enough away, the conversation lowers, not dramatically. No violins enter, but the voice changes. Someone says she has been tired lately. Someone says she cannot seem to sleep. Someone says her husband does not understand. Someone says the doctor gave her something. Someone else knows immediately what that means. These calls could save a woman from feeling entirely alone. That matters. A voice at the other end of the wire could confirm that the trouble was not imaginary, that other kitchens had the same pressure behind the curtains, that other mothers stood at sinks wondering how a good life could feel so heavy. Before formal therapy became more common, and before women's magazines began naming the deeper dissatisfaction more openly, the telephone carried fragments of truth from one house to another like contraband. But even here, honesty has to wear a Hauser dress and behave itself. You cannot speak too plainly if your husband might pass through the hall. You cannot cry too loudly if the children are nearby. You cannot say everything to your mother, because she may tell you that all women go through this and you should count your blessings, which is both historically common and emotionally about as useful as being handed a coupon during a flood. So you speak in code. I've been run down. The doctor says it's nerves. He gave me a little something. It helps, I suppose. These phrases move through the wire with their real meanings tucked inside them. The woman on the other end understands. She may be stirring soup as she listens. She may be smoking by her own sink. She may be standing with the receiver tucked between shoulder and ear, folding towels while quietly holding another person together. Then someone calls your name. A child appears demanding justice, milk, or proof that a shoe cannot simply vanish. The spell breaks. You say you have to go. She says she does too. You both promise to talk again soon, a promise that is half kindness and half survival plan. You hang up the receiver, and the little click feels final. The hallway is ordinary again. The house has not changed. The laundry waits, the kitchen waits, the bottle in the cabinet waits. But for a few minutes, through a cord stretched across the hall, someone heard you. In the 1950s, that could be medicine too. Let's step outside. The suburb is quiet in the way a stage set is quiet before the actors enter. Lawns stretch neatly from one driveway to the next. Sprinklers tick. Station wagons rest in carports. Curtains glow. Mailboxes stand at attention. Everything about the post-war suburb suggests health, order, safety, and upward mobility. For many families, it genuinely offered space, stability, and comfort after years of depression, war, rationing, and uncertainty. But for many mothers, especially those without cars during the day, it could also become a beautiful enclosure. The city was far away. Family networks were scattered. Work, shops, doctors, and friends were reachable only through schedules arranged around husbands, school buses, and errands. The suburb looked like a cure from the outside. From the kitchen window, it sometimes looked more like a very clean maze. The air smells of cut grass, gasoline, damp pavement, and someone's early dinner beginning its slow casserole transformation. A lawnmower drones 2 houses down with the steady confidence of post-war masculinity. Children ride bicycles along the sidewalk, their voices rising and falling in small bursts, while mothers watch from porches, windows, or kitchen sinks, always half present, always available, always performing the delicate art of supervising without appearing to hover. The houses are similar enough to reassure, and different enough to allow modest competition. A new awning here, a brighter flower bed there, a bird bath making a quiet statement about taste. This landscape was sold as a rival. After the cramped apartments, the boarding houses, the wartime separations, the uncertainty of the 1930s and 1940s, here was a private house with a yard, a driveway, appliances, a nursery, and space for children to grow. The promise was powerful, and it was not false. Many families did find real comfort here. There was clean air compared to crowded city streets, room for play, neighbours of similar age, schools nearby, and a sense that life had finally become stable enough to plant shrubs. But stability has a way of becoming surveillance when everyone can see everyone else's shrubs. You stand at the kitchen window and know the rhythm of the street. Which husband leaves earliest, which mother hangs sheets before 10, which child is always late for the school bus, which lawn is slipping, which curtains stay drawn too long. The suburb creates community but also a quiet scoreboard. A woman's house becomes visible proof of her competence. The lawn, the porch, the children, the curtains, the dinner smells, even the trash cans set out too early or too late, all of it seems to speak. And if the house looks disorderly, the question is not what happened to the house. The question is what happened to the woman inside it. The car is the central character in this story, even when it is not present. Many suburban designs assume driving as naturally as breathing, but not every wife had access to a car during the day. Your husband may take it to work, leaving you in a neighbourhood where everything looks open and reachable but is arranged just far enough away to require wheels. The grocery store is not impossibly distant, but distant enough with children. The doctor is reachable but not casually. Your mother lives across town. Your old friends are scattered. Walking is possible, but the suburb does not always welcome the pedestrian with enthusiasm. It is a place designed for motion, and you may spend much of the day still. Inside the house, the silence can become thick. The refrigerator hums, the clock ticks, a dog barks far away. The telephone may ring, and if it does, you feel briefly restored to civilization. If it does not, the day stretches. You move from room to room, straightening evidence of life so thoroughly that the house begins to resemble a place waiting for its real occupants to return. You are in it constantly, and somehow it can still make you feel like a visitor. This is where the pill bottle fits so neatly into the architecture. It asks no questions about zoning, transportation, gender roles, childcare, loneliness, or whether a woman should be expected to find complete fulfillment between a washing machine and a picture window. It simply offers relief small enough to swallow. The suburb remains beautiful. The woman inside it becomes quieter. By late afternoon, golden light settles over the lawns, and the street looks exactly like the advertisement promised. Children come home, cars return, porch lights blink on. Dinner smells drift from house to house like proof. Everything is peaceful, which is not the same thing as everyone being well. Let's remember the woman you were, because she did not vanish simply because the war ended. During the 1940s, many American women entered paid work, factories, offices, volunteer services, and wartime organizations that gave structure, income, comradeship, and a sense of public usefulness. Then peace arrived, and with it came a cultural pressure for women to return home, give jobs back to men, marry, have children, and treat domestic life as the final reward for national endurance. For some women, this was genuinely desired. For others, it was like being handed a prize that felt suspiciously like a locked room. You may have known the feeling of wages in your hand, adult conversation, competence recognized outside the home. Now your intelligence is expressed through meal planning and stain removal. The country calls it normal. Your memory disagrees. Perhaps you remember the factory floor. Not romantically, because factory work was loud, repetitive, dangerous, and often hard on the hands, but because it was also a place where your effort had a visible place in the wider world. Machines hammered, sparks flew, lunch whistles blew. Women stood shoulder to shoulder in slacks, scarves, work shoes, and fatigue, learning jobs they had once been told were not feminine, then performing them well enough that the nation quietly adjusted its opinion for the duration of the emergency. It is amazing what becomes acceptable when a war needs airplanes. Or perhaps you worked in an office, fingers flying over typewriter keys, carbon paper staining your hands, phones ringing, supervisors barking instructions, pay envelopes arriving with your name attached. Maybe you volunteered with the Red Cross, rolled bandages, organised drives, wrote letters, sorted supplies, or stood in a canteen pouring coffee for men in uniform who looked too young to be carrying the weight placed on them. Whatever the task, it told you that your competence had public value. You were not only someone's daughter, wife, or future mother. You were useful in a way that left records, wages, signatures, schedules. Then the war ended, and the machinery of gratitude turned abruptly into the machinery of replacement. Men came home and needed jobs. Families needed rebuilding. A country exhausted by uncertainty wanted domestic calm, with a desperation that made it look almost patriotic. The image of the happy housewife did not simply appear because everyone suddenly developed a passion for polished linoleum. It answered a national hunger for order. After depression, rationing, war work, telegrams, loss and fear, the home was advertised as the place where America would recover itself, preferably with curtains, children, and a woman who did not mention that she had once riveted bomber parts. You try to be fair. You may love your children. You may enjoy making a home. You may take pride in a clean kitchen, a well-managed budget, a good meal, a house where people feel safe. These are not small things. The trouble begins when they are treated as the only things you are allowed to want. The trouble begins when gratitude becomes a leash. You have a washing machine, a roof, a husband with work, healthy children, a refrigerator full enough to hum with purpose. What kind of woman would still feel restless? The answer, inconveniently, is a perfectly ordinary one. So the restlessness is renamed. It becomes nerves, tension, fatigue, a phase, a personal adjustment problem, not grief for the working self you were asked to pack away, not frustration at being praised into silence, not anger that the same country that needed your labour now prefers your apron, just nerves, tucked neatly into the doctor's vocabulary and sent home with a prescription. You stand at the ironing board in the afternoon, pressing your husband's shirts with practiced strokes. Steam rises, the cotton smooths, the radio murmurs from the counter. A child plays in the next room. The house is peaceful in every approved way. And still, something in you remembers noise, motion, wages, other women laughing during a shift. The solid pride of doing a job people could not pretend was invisible. The iron hisses. The collar sharpens beneath your hand. The past does not return. It simply lives quietly inside you, wearing work gloves beneath the apron. And no one has prescribed anything for that. Let's visit the pharmacy, because every respectable town has one, and it knows things. The bell over the door rings. The air smells of talcum powder, shaving soap, cough syrup, floor polish, and the sweet medicinal sharpness of glass bottles behind the counter. The pharmacist stands in a white coat, not quite a doctor, not quite a shopkeeper, occupying the sacred middle ground between science and gossip. He fills prescriptions for sleeping pills, tranquilizers, tonics, painkillers, diet aids, and whatever else the local doctor believes will keep households functioning. He knows who has refills too soon. He knows which women avoid eye contact. He knows which husbands pick up prescriptions without asking what they are for. Confidentiality exists, but so does small-town knowledge, which moves through the air without leaving fingerprints. The pharmacy is bright, tidy, and reassuring in the way mid-century shops often are, arranged to make illness feel manageable and personal distress look like a problem that can be wrapped in white paper. There are greeting cards near the front, chocolates, combs, fountain pens, magazines, cough drops, baby powder, shaving cream, and cheerful displays suggesting that modern life can be improved through regular purchases and confidence in chemistry. Behind the counter, however, is the real machinery. Shelves of bottles, mortars and labels, drawers, ledgers, names written down in careful script. the private worries of the town organised alphabetically. You hand over the prescription with the slightly formal gesture of someone passing along a secret that has already been approved by authority. The paper is folded once from your handbag, still warm from being carried against your gloves and tissues and grocery list. The pharmacist glances at it. He does not raise an eyebrow. This is part of his skill. A good pharmacist receives every human problem as though it were no more surprising than a request for toothpaste. Nerves, sleeplessness, weight, pain, a difficult month, a difficult marriage. A difficult life described in 2 Latin abbreviations and a dosage schedule. He turns away to work, and you stand there among ordinary products, feeling exposed by how ordinary everything is. A child nearby begs for candy. An older man buys pipe tobacco. A teenager flips through magazines. Somewhere, the soda fountain clinks softly, if your pharmacy still has one, serving milkshakes to people whose bodies are not currently being asked to perform emotional diplomacy for an entire household. The normalness is almost rude. The prescription is filled with practiced precision. Pills are counted, slid into a small bottle, capped, labelled, and placed into a paper bag. The sound of tablets dropping is delicate, dry, and unmistakably intimate. It is the sound of relief being measured. It is also the sound of risk being made portable. The pharmacist may offer instructions. Take one at bedtime. Take as needed. Do not exceed the prescribed dose. He may say it kindly. He may say it automatically. He may not say much at all, because in the 1950s, patients were often expected to obey rather than interrogate. The doctor prescribed. The pharmacist dispensed. The woman complied. Questions, like strong opinions, were best used sparingly if one wished to remain pleasant in public. And yet the pharmacist understands more than he says. He sees patterns. He sees the same women returning. He sees prescriptions for tranquilizers after a birth, sleeping pills after months of exhaustion, diet aids before summer, sedatives after a husband's promotion that somehow makes the wife's life harder. He sees the respectable machinery of the town maintaining itself one bottle at a time. It is not scandal, it is routine. That is what makes it unsettling. You sign, pay, or charge it to the household account. Depending on the arrangement, the bottle disappears into your handbag with a soft paper rustle. It joins lipstick, coins, keys, receipts, tissues, and the other small objects by which a woman manages the world. Outside, the street is ordinary. Cars pass. A bus exhales at the corner. Someone waves. You wave back because your manners are intact, even if your sleep is not. On the walk home, the bag feels heavier than it should. Not physically. The bottle weighs almost nothing. But it carries permission, secrecy, hope, shame, obedience, and a little chemical promise that the afternoon might not defeat you entirely. That is a great deal to ask from something small enough to hide beneath a handkerchief. Back in the house, you put it where it belongs. Behind the mirror, beside the aspirin, near the cold cream. The pharmacy has done its part. The town has not noticed anything unusual. Of course it has not. It has been filling the same prescription all week. It is late afternoon now, the hour when the sun drops low, the children grow louder, and the house seems to exhale flour dust, floor wax, and judgment. Somewhere, a bottle is opened. It may be sherry, gin, bourbon, or something poured discreetly into a glass, while dinner begins its complicated transformation from ingredients into obligation. Alcohol was socially accepted, and in many homes, a drink before dinner was ordinary adult behavior. The problem came when sedatives, tranquilizers, or sleeping pills entered the same body with it. Many women did not fully understand the danger of combining central nervous system depressants with alcohol, and the warning culture around medication was not what it is now. The result could be deep sedation, confusion, accidents, overdose, or simply a foggy evening everyone agreed not to name. The glass is small, because respectability often depends on size and presentation. A little sherry in a cordial glass does not look alarming. A gin and tonic with ice clinking softly in the kitchen light looks almost festive. A splash of bourbon poured while the roast rests under foil can pass as adult civilization. The sort of thing magazines show beside smiling couples and lamps with excellent shades. It is not drinking, exactly. It is a pause with liquid in it. The house at this hour is especially difficult. Morning had momentum, afternoon had errands, but late afternoon has a peculiar emotional texture, thick and golden and dangerous. The children are tired enough to become unreasonable, but not tired enough to become unconscious, which is the central tragedy of parenting. Dinner must appear soon. Your husband will arrive and require the household to shift into evening mode, a transformation that sounds simple until you remember it involves food, faces, manners, temperature, timing, and the ceremonial hiding of every domestic crisis that happened before he walked in. So the drink feels understandable. It warms the chest, it softens the jaw, it gives the hand something elegant to hold while the potatoes boil over with the theatrical timing of a child actor. It tells you, briefly, that you are an adult woman with a private interior life and not merely the human department responsible for socks, meatloaf, and emotional weather control. But the body, unfortunately, is not reading the social script. The body is conducting chemistry. If earlier in the day you took something for nerves, or if last night's sleeping pill is still lingering in the system, or if a sedative has become part of the afternoon routine, then alcohol is not simply a drink, it is an accomplice. Both alcohol and many sedating medications slow the central nervous system. Together, they can make each other stronger, which sounds helpful only if you do not think carefully about breathing, balance, memory, judgment, or the need to remove a casserole from an oven without incident. In a modern pharmacy, this would come with warning labels, consultation, perhaps a pamphlet written in calm language with alarming implications. In your 1950s kitchen, the warning may be vague or absent. The doctor told you to take one when needed. The pharmacist told you the dose. Your neighbour said it helped her. The advertisement said modern medicine was wonderfully advanced. Nobody necessarily sat you down and explained that your evening drink and your little pill were about to become far too friendly. So the fog arrives politely, not all at once. First the room seems warmer, then the children's noise moves farther away, which is not unwelcome. Your thoughts slow. The spoon in your hand feels heavier than a spoon has any right to feel. You forget whether you salted the vegetables, then salt them again, because confidence is easier than memory. You laugh at something that is not quite funny, or perhaps you become suddenly quiet. The evening continues around you, rearranging itself to accommodate your softness. If your husband notices, he may say you seem tired. This is not wrong. It is only insufficient. Tired is what everyone says when a woman's body is carrying too many substances and too many expectations through the dinner hour. Tired is a word that can be placed gently over many things. Like a napkin over a stain, it does not remove the problem, but it improves the table. And tomorrow perhaps you will be embarrassed without knowing exactly why. Or you will remember very little. Or you will wake heavy, ashamed, dry-mouthed, and already late for the day that expects your full cooperation. The bottle will still be in the cabinet. The cocktail glasses will be washed and put away. Everything will look normal. That was always the most dangerous part. Let's return to the dressing table. Because the face must be restored before the husband comes home, the neighbours stop by, or someone appears at the door selling encyclopedias with the confidence of a missionary. The mirror is rimmed with soft light. Cold cream sits in a jar, lipstick waits in its golden tube. Powder, rouge, mascara, perfume and hairspray form a small decorative army. The 1950s mother is expected to look fresh even when she feels privately composted. Beauty is not vanity here, it is social maintenance. A neat appearance reassures everyone that the home is under control, the marriage is stable, the children are thriving, and no one has spent part of the afternoon crying into folded towels. If the pill steadies the hand applying lipstick, then the lipstick completes the disguise. The dressing table smells of powder, roses, alcohol from the hairspray, and the faint waxy sweetness of lipstick. There may be a little embroidered stool, a tray for perfume bottles, a brush and comb set, a compact with a mirror clouded at the edges, and bobby pins scattered like tiny black punctuation marks from a sentence no one has had time to finish. This is the place where the day's damage is edited. The body comes here tired, irritated, warm from the kitchen, carrying flour on one sleeve and a private sense of having been used as public infrastructure. The mirror receives all of it without sympathy. You begin with the face. Cold cream first, if there is makeup to remove, or powder if the goal is simply to restore the surface before evening. The skin is patted, smoothed, corrected. Dark circles are softened, shine is subdued. A little rouge returns health to cheeks that have spent the afternoon negotiating with children, steam, and resentment. Lipstick goes on last, carefully, because the mouth must look prepared to say pleasant things, even if the mind behind it is drafting a legal complaint against the entire household. In the 1950s, beauty culture had a moral dimension that is easy to underestimate from a distance. A woman's appearance was not treated as personal preference alone, it was evidence. Evidence of discipline, femininity, marital respect, class aspiration, emotional stability, and whether she cared enough about her family to remain decorative while exhausted. To let oneself go was not simply to become untidy. It was to fail socially in a way that suggested deeper trouble, as if a crooked stocking seam might reveal a crack in the Republic. So you fix the seams too. You check the girdle, the slip, the skirt, the collar. You pat your hair, which has been persuaded into shape through pins, rollers, brushing, spray, and the belief that weather can be defeated by aerosol. The hair must hold. The face must hold. The waist must hold. The voice must hold. The whole woman is expected to hold. This is where the chemistry becomes subtle. Not every beauty routine involved pills, of course, but the larger ritual of looking composed could easily sit beside the smaller ritual of taking something to become composed. A tranquilizer for nerves, a diet pill for the figure, a sleeping pill to survive the night before beginning the whole performance again. Cosmetics and prescriptions worked in different ways, but both served the same cultural demand. Smooth the evidence. Keep the visible world pleasant. And it was not all grim. There could be pleasure here too. The cool touch of cream on the skin, the satisfying click of a lipstick tube, the little lift that comes from perfume behind the ears, the private artistry of making oneself look beautiful in a room no one else has entered. Women were not fools for enjoying beauty. They were not foolish for wanting colour, glamour, softness, or the dignity of presentation. The trouble was that enjoyment became obligation so easily, and obligation became another chore with better packaging. Downstairs, a child calls your name, the pot on the stove needs checking, your husband may be home in 20 minutes, the house begins pulling you back, one sound at a time. You look once more in the mirror. The woman looking back appears calm, attractive, capable, perhaps even rested if the lighting is generous and the observer is not trained in suffering. You stand, smooth your skirt, and step away from the dressing table. The lipstick is perfect, the powder is set, the hair is holding. If only the same could be said for you. Let's go back to the beginning, to the maternity ward where motherhood is treated with both celebration and astonishing control. By the 1950s, hospital births had become increasingly common in the United States, often involving heavy medication, twilight sleep practices in some places, strict routines, bottle feeding guidance, nursery schedules, and medical authority that left many women with little say over what happened to their own bodies. You entered labour and became a patient in a system that valued efficiency, expertise, and quiet compliance. Afterward, you were sent home with a baby, instructions, stitches, bleeding, hormones, laundry, and very little meaningful support. If you felt frightened, sad, detached, overwhelmed, or unable to sleep, the language for postpartum depression was limited. The prescription pad, however, was available. The hospital smells of antiseptic, starch, flowers, floor polish, boiled linen, and fear pretending to be cleanliness. Nurses move briskly in white shoes that make soft rubber sounds along the corridor. Doors swing, metal carts rattle. Somewhere, a baby cries with the thin outrage of a person recently evicted from comfortable darkness. Your name is written on a chart. Your body is measured, timed, examined, discussed, and treated as both sacred and inconvenient, which is an impressive combination. In earlier generations, many women gave birth at home, attended by midwives, relatives, or local doctors. By the 1950s, more births had moved into hospitals, and this shift brought real benefits. There were trained staff, surgical options in emergencies, access to blood transfusions, antibiotics, and equipment that could save lives. It would be dishonest to pretend the hospital was only a machine of control. For many mothers and babies, it was protection. But protection could come wrapped in authority so tight you could barely breathe through it. You may be shaved, prepped, medicated, told when to push, told when not to push, and spoken about in the third person while fully present in the room. Twilight sleep, used especially earlier in the century and still remembered in some practices, involved drugs that dulled memory and awareness rather than removing pain in any simple, humane way. Other forms of medication could leave women groggy, confused, or separated from the experience at the very moment everyone later insists should be the most natural and beautiful of life. This is one of history's little jokes. First remove a woman's control, then praise her instinct. When the baby arrives, the room becomes busy with procedure. The child is weighed, cleaned, wrapped, taken to a nursery, placed behind glass like a very small museum exhibit. Visitors peer in and identify their relatives by little cards and hopeful resemblance. Feeding schedules are discussed. Bottle feeding may be encouraged as modern, scientific, convenient, and measurable. Breastfeeding is not always supported with patience or good information. The doctor knows, the nurse knows. The mother is expected to learn quickly and not become dramatic. Then you come home. This is where the story becomes almost absurdly unfair. After an event that has rearranged your body, sleep, identity, hormones, marriage, schedule, and relationship with every sound in the house, you are returned to the domestic battlefield with flowers on the table and very few reinforcements. People congratulate you. They say the baby is beautiful. They tell you to enjoy every minute, which is a phrase spoken almost exclusively by people not currently leaking milk onto a nightgown at 3 a.m. If you cry, perhaps it is called baby blues. If you cannot sleep even when the baby sleeps, perhaps you are nervous. If you feel detached, ashamed, frightened, or hollow, perhaps someone tells you all new mothers feel that way, which is both sometimes true and not nearly enough. The deeper condition we would now recognize in many cases as postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety had limited public language then, and without language, suffering becomes private, mysterious, and very easy to mislabel. So the doctor may write something down, something for rest, something for nerves, something to help you settle. The bottle joins the diapers, the formula, the laundry, the receiving blankets, the tiny socks, the thank you notes, and the advice arriving from every older woman with a casserole and a theory. You rock the baby in the dim light, your body aching, your hair unbrushed, your robe smelling faintly of milk and talcum powder. The child sighs against you, impossibly small and entirely real. You love this baby. You are also tired enough to feel transparent. The world calls this natural. Nature, apparently, has paperwork. Let's be precise, because history becomes dishonest when it pretends every mother lived in the same kitchen. The iconic pill-taking suburban housewife was often imagined as white, middle-class, married, and living in a home filled with consumer goods. But working-class women, black women, immigrant women, rural women, and single mothers lived under different pressures, often with less access to sympathetic doctors, less privacy, less money, and far less cultural permission to collapse. Some did not receive prescriptions because they could not afford medical care. Some received harsher judgment instead of treatment. Some worked outside the home and then returned to domestic labour after hours, performing 2 kinds of exhaustion for one body. The story of prescription pills in 1950s motherhood is real, but it is not evenly distributed. Even chemical comfort had a class structure. If you are a middle-class suburban mother with a family doctor, a telephone, a car available at least sometimes, and a husband whose job provides a steady income, your distress may be translated into nerves. That translation is not perfect, but it is at least recognizable to the medical system. You can sit in a waiting room, describe your sleeplessness, your headaches, your irritability, your feeling that the walls are standing too close, and the doctor may reach for the prescription pad with paternal concern. He may not understand you fully, he may not understand you at all, but he has a category for you. You are tired, you are tense. You are a respectable woman who needs help becoming more comfortable inside a respectable life. That category is its own privilege. If you are a working-class mother, the same symptoms may be treated quite differently. You may not have the money for repeated doctor visits. You may not have time to sit in a waiting room while children need collecting, laundry needs finishing, and paid work begins in an hour. If you clean other people's houses, work in a laundry, take in sewing, serve in a diner, stand behind a shop counter, or spend your day in a factory, your exhaustion is not mysterious. It is obvious. The problem is that obvious suffering is often easier for society to ignore. No one needs to prescribe a tranquilizer to explain why you are tired. They can simply point to the work and expect you to continue doing it. If you are a black mother in 1950s America, your life is shaped not only by gender expectations, but by segregation, racism, unequal medical treatment, employment discrimination, housing discrimination, and the constant labor of protecting children in a society that may not protect them. The cheerful housewife ideal in magazines rarely looks like you, and when it does not include you, it also does not offer you the same fragile sympathy. Your anxiety may be entirely reasonable. Your anger may be a form of sanity, but the culture is much less likely to call it nerves in a soft voice, and much more likely to call it attitude, trouble, or something else designed to make the system comfortable with your discomfort. If you are an immigrant mother, you may be navigating language, money, neighborhood judgment, family expectations, and the pressure to become acceptably American without losing the world you came from. If you are rural, the doctor may be far away and privacy even farther. If you are a single mother, widow, divorced woman, or wife whose husband is unreliable, the household does not have the tidy structure the advertisements assume. There may be no man arriving home at 6, no new washer, no pastel kitchen, no leisurely doctor's appointment for nerves. There may only be work, children, bills, and the sharp social gaze reserved for women who cannot perform the approved version of dependence. And still, women endured. They traded childcare, they stretched food. They cared for elders, they worked double shifts before anyone called them double shifts. They made Sunday clothes last. They learned which neighbour could be trusted, which employer could not, which doctor listened, which clinic hurried, which church ladies helped, and which ones only inspected. Their medicine cabinets may have held fewer tranquilizers, but their lives were not lighter because of it. So when we talk about mothers and prescription pills, we must not imagine one universal kitchen with one universal bottle behind the mirror. There were many kitchens. Some had chrome appliances and quiet panic. Some had cracked linoleum and unpaid rent. Some had no privacy at all. Some had no doctor willing to hear the problem kindly. The pill bottle tells part of the story. The empty shelf tells another. And history, inconveniently, insists we look at both. Let's read the fine print, assuming anyone has bothered to provide it. Drowsiness, confusion, dependence, tolerance, falls, memory lapses, withdrawal, dangerous interactions. The words are clinical and tidy, which is considerate of them, because the lived experience is not. A woman who begins with one pill for sleep may need more over time. A tranquilizer taken for nerves may become part of surviving the afternoon. A stimulant for weight loss may make rest harder, requiring another pill to come down. This is not moral weakness. It is pharmacology meeting social pressure in a kitchen with yellow curtains. Many patients trusted their doctors, and doctors often trusted drugs more enthusiastically than later evidence would justify. The bottle looked official. The label had your name on it. That is a powerful form of reassurance. The advertisement, of course, does not show the second month. It does not show the woman standing in the bathroom with the cabinet open, counting tablets with a small private unease. It does not show her wondering whether she took one already or only thought about taking one. It does not show the morning after a sleeping pill, when the body rises slowly through a heavy fog and the children still require cereal at full volume. Advertisements prefer the before and after, never the strange middle where the solution begins asking for a larger place in the house. At first, the side effects can be folded into ordinary life. You are sleepy because the baby woke twice. You are forgetful because mothers are busy. You are irritable because anyone would be, frankly, after discovering melted crayon in the pocket of a freshly washed shirt. You are dizzy because you stood up too quickly. You are anxious because the world is anxious. Each symptom finds a reasonable explanation, and the bottle remains innocent, sitting behind the mirror with the clean expression of a guest who has definitely not stolen anything. Tolerance is especially quiet. It does not arrive with a trumpet. It arrives as disappointment. The pill that once softened the afternoon now barely takes the edge off. The sleeping tablet that once pulled you down into darkness now leaves you hovering unpleasantly above rest, listening to your husband breathe and the clock tick and the refrigerator hum from the kitchen like a witness. So perhaps you take another half. Perhaps you ask the doctor for something stronger. Perhaps he changes the prescription, because medicine in this period is moving quickly and everyone is very impressed with movement. Then there is dependence. a word that sounds severe only after someone else applies it. From inside the day, it may feel like prudence. You know what happens if you do not sleep. You know what happens if the afternoon catches you unprotected. You know what happens when your temper rises too quickly, when the baby cries, when the phone rings, when the roast burns, when your husband asks why you are so sensitive. The pill is not a thrill. It is a precaution, a small white sandbag against the flood. Withdrawal, when it comes, is not polite enough to match the label. Sleeplessness returns sharpened. Anxiety comes back with reinforcements. The body, having adjusted itself around chemical assistance, objects to its removal with the offended seriousness of a committee denied coffee. Hands tremble. Thoughts race. The skin feels too tight. The world becomes loud again, and because the original problem was never solved, only muffled, it is difficult to know where the old distress ends and the new distress begins. The two hold hands in the hallway and refuse to introduce themselves. The cruelest part is how easily responsibility slides onto the woman. If the medicine helps, modern science is marvellous. If the medicine harms, perhaps she took too much. Perhaps she misunderstood. Perhaps she is unstable, weak, careless, emotional. The system that handed her the bottle can step backward with remarkable grace. A woman, meanwhile, stands in the kitchen trying to remember whether the dizziness began before or after lunch. And still, we should be careful with judgment. These women were not foolish. They were often doing exactly what trusted professionals told them to do, inside lives that offered little rest, little language, and fewer honest alternatives. They reached for relief because relief was needed. The problem was not that they wanted help. The problem was that help came so often in a bottle small enough to hide, instead of in a world broad enough to hold them. So the label remains neat, the bottle remains ordinary, the advertisement remains cheerful, and somewhere between the powder compact and the aspirin, a woman begins to suspect that the cure has learned her address. Finally, the house is quiet, or as quiet as a 1950s house can be when it contains a refrigerator humming like a loyal machine, pipes knocking in the walls, children breathing through stuffy noses, and a husband turning over in bed with the innocence of someone who does not know where the extra sheets are kept. You stand in the bathroom with the medicine cabinet open, the mirror reflecting your face in a narrow rectangle of light. For the first time all day, no one is asking for anything. The little bottles sit there, patient and orderly, offering sleep, calm, appetite control, silence. And perhaps the strangest thing is not that you might reach for them. The strangest thing is that so many women were told the reaching was private, personal, individual, when in fact millions of hands were moving toward the same small shelf in the same quiet hour. The bathroom is cool beneath your feet. The tiles hold the chill of night with a kind of institutional commitment. On the sink, a washcloth lies folded badly, because even cloth eventually loses faith. The soap is cracked in its dish. A faint ring of toothpaste marks the edge of the basin. The house has the stillness that comes after labour, not peace exactly, but the pause after everything has stopped demanding visible motion. You look at the bottles and recognise their neat authority. One for sleep, one for nerves, one from last winter's headaches, one that was supposed to help with weight. One you no longer take, but have not thrown away because waste is a sin, and because some part of you likes knowing it is there. The cotton at the top is pressed down. The labels curl slightly at the edges. Your name appears again and again in small typed letters, as if the pharmacy has been quietly documenting different versions of you. This is the private archive of a woman the world keeps calling fortunate. And you are fortunate in ways that matter. There is food in the kitchen, the children are sleeping in their beds, the roof does not leak, your husband has work. The neighbourhood is safe enough for bicycles in the street and curtains open at dusk. There are appliances your mother would have envied, and closets full of sheets, and a refrigerator that keeps milk cold without requiring anyone to negotiate with ice. These comforts are real. They are not imaginary. But comfort and freedom are not the same thing. And a woman can be grateful inside a life that is still too narrow for her. That was the great trick of the age. It made complaint feel like ingratitude. It surrounded mothers with consumer goods, then asked why they were still tired. It placed them in clean houses, then wondered why loneliness had followed them indoors. It gave them washing machines, vacuum cleaners, frozen peas, medical progress, magazines full of advice, and enough social expectation to make the soul sit upright with its ankles crossed. Then, when the arrangement hurt, it handed them a pill and called the hurt nerves. You close your fingers around one bottle, not necessarily to open it, just to feel its shape. The glass is cool and ordinary. There is no drama in it, no thunder, no confession. Just a small container designed to make something unbearable a little more bearable. That is why judgment feels too easy here. These women were not weak for wanting relief. Many were lonely, exhausted, undersupported, dismissed, medically patronized, socially inspected, and expected to turn every private difficulty into a quieter facial expression. Relief made sense. Silence made sense. Survival, even chemically assisted survival, made sense. What did not make sense was pretending each woman had invented the problem herself. You set the bottle back on the shelf. The mirror catches your face again, softened by bathroom light, older than the advertisements promised, younger than you feel at midnight. Somewhere down the hall, a child sighs in sleep. The refrigerator hums on, devoted and useless in matters of the heart. You close the medicine cabinet. The little click is tiny, almost delicate. Behind the mirror, the bottles wait. In houses up and down the street, behind other mirrors, other bottles wait too. And for one quiet second, before you turn off the light, you understand something no advertisement has been kind enough to say. You were never the only one.